start. Okay.
Okay, so my thesis is more of like a hook, I just realized, but my thesis is euthanasia is a painful express request upon a patient's approval. This provides an escape route for the terminally ill or individuals in an irreversible coma. If euthanasia was legalized in all 50 states, more patients would have the opportunity to choose something other than unbearable pain. So for starters, some people are not super and or painful disease or an irreversible coma. And specifically speaking, because people have been in comas because of like sports and whatnot, but an irreversible coma is a period of 24 hours no spontaneous movements or breathing, absence of reflexes, and it just essentially means that you're brain dead. So yeah, I'm going to be supporting euthanasia to be legalized in all 50 states because I think individuals should have the opportunity to choose another path. If they are in pain, they shouldn't be, if they think they would benefit from death rather than living, because if they are on their deathbed and they are in chronic pain, they ended up choosing death and they are conscious enough to make that decision, I think they should, it's their body, their choice, they should be able to go with it. I do have some counterpoints that I came up with that people are super, like for people who are against euthanasia, these are the kind of things that they would say. One being, isn't assisted suicide considered murder? And technically speaking, no. Depending on the state or who legalized euthanasia for the terminally ill patients, it wouldn't be illegal. The definition of murder is the unlawful premeditated killing of a human by another. But the key word unlawful just means not conforming to permitted by or recognized by laws or rules. So therefore, you cannot commit murder when it is legalized in the states. Also, another one is morality standards. So in regards to religion, Christians believe that if you kill yourself, you will be sent to hell. For this, I said this wouldn't work because there is a separation between church and state. The government cannot cannot issue laws that are dictated by religion. Therefore, your idea of going to hell for suicide is a personal belief, which invalidates this argument completely. And another one being, I interviewed some people and some said, what if the patient isn't in their right mind? And I believe that if the patient has been diagnosed with something fatal and is predicted to die on their deathbed, obviously, if they are conscious enough and they are in chronic pain, it is the patient's right to choose to pass away. Now, if they are in an irreversible coma, that decision lies on the family because obviously the person in the coma can't make that decision. But yeah, that's my topic that I'm going to be going with.
Okay, outstanding job getting us started, Trinity. And does anybody want to jump in, either pro or con? Any comments?
Yeah.
Thanks, Will.
I would be for it as well. I think that people should have the right, they should have freedom to make the choice. But um, I guess if I'm looking at like a con standpoint, I guess maybe if like the family member, there's like a family member that is trying to like kill off the relative to gain the money, like inheritance or something. That's just a thought. But I am definitely for it though.
Yeah, I was honestly thinking about that too, because if someone were, because that was the first thought in my mind, if someone were in a coma and pretend the person is extremely wealthy and an individual is after their money, what wouldn't stop them from saying, yeah, my dad is in so much pain, let's go ahead and kill him off? I'm going to be doing more research on that because I did think about that. I don't have any evidence to counteract that, but thank you all. That really, really does help actually.
Yep.
I don't know. The other side I was thinking to that um, was what if the person that is sick that knows they're going to be dying, what if they're like, okay, yes, I want to do euthanasia, I want to, not hinder my family and stuff, but the whole family's like, no, we don't want to lose you. Everybody's like against them being euthanized, yet that person that has the cancer is like, yes, I want to do this, I just want to end it and be done with it. What, have you looked at that side at all, or?
Yeah, so honestly, it comes down to just consciousness. And yes, they are in pain, but once again, they can make the decision for themselves. And unfortunately, with the family not agreeing with that decision, they are completely out of control. If the patient can verbally say, I don't want to be here, I am in pain, I want to die. It's sad because, yeah, there are families that will keep individuals alive because they don't want to lose them, but if they are brain dead or they are dying from cancer and they are going to die soon and they would like to speed up the process, then that's their decision, not the family's.
Cool.
I guess I'm definitely for giving people the right to choose euthanasia, but I think that there's a very large portion of people that are against it. One thing that I think is commonly seen as a reason against euthanasia that isn't addressed, I think, that much, is, if you give a patient or a family essentially the right to say you should put this family member, this patient, out of their misery and to choose that they should die, you're also forcing doctors to have to assume that duty to kill the patient. So you're saying that all of these doctors or a very specialized field in medicine are essentially going to have to take on the burden of taking someone's life, possibly on a regular basis, depending on where they work and what sort of facilities they have. And I think that that would be a really difficult prospect to introduce, especially since in the field of medicine, oaths to save lives whenever possible are so prevalent and important. So I think that would be an emotional reason that I think people would have a difficulty overcoming.
Yeah, I really, really like that. I didn't really think about that one. That's the cool thing about this topic. There's so many different counterpoints and aspects, and that's why it's only legalized in 9 different states, because all the other states, yeah, they had these exact same points, whether like morally would the doctors be able to do it, what it, and just like certain conditions under the patients. Yeah, I'm writing that down right now because I don't know how. I would need to do research on if you need a certain amount of education to be able to administer essentially this final dose, or if it could just be, I don't know, a regular, yeah, physician. So I will definitely do research on that. Thank you, Joshua.
Trinity, I was thinking of one more, and this might sound a little bit out there, but I think it's become more prevalent. I remember the first time a student did this topic, I was horrified. I was like, that doesn't happen. And since then, I've heard it does happen, which is just, it's kind of baffling. But it kind of goes along with what Will was saying, that there's huge bucks in organ, selling people's organs and like killing people off to get their organs. Like, I mean, it's like a thing. So that might be one counter also for you. I don't know if that, if that really goes into play with this topic with euthanasia, but I know that it's even made me, I'll be honest, it's made me be a little bit cautious sometimes about, I've always like so readily checked that I want to be an organ donor. And I've read several student papers that like scared me. I was like, oh my gosh, they'll like take my heart when I'm still alive. No, I don't know. And you'd hope that would never happen, but I'm just going to throw that out there because I know that it is I know that there's huge money in organs.
But going off of that, sorry, this sounds stupid. Do you mean just like organ donors in general or illegally? Because with organ donors in general, you have to be healthy. If you do have cancer, they won't take an organ from your body, even if you are an organ donor, because that can jeopardize some other individual that they put that in. So yeah, I can definitely incorporate that into my essay. That one's really, really good.
And I think that more what I'd be thinking of is almost like the black market. Like, I don't even know if
Mm,
you care if it's legal. These are just some of the papers. And I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. And it just sounds like really creepy, but it's just something you might want to peek at. So,
awesome.
Furthering your point there, Miss Brody, is I think that figuring out a good counterpoint to, ways to control or to completely control how it's carried out and how oversight is done. I know there's been some studies out of countries where it's legal fairly recently, such as the Netherlands, I believe, where they found that there are a lot of cases with euthanasia where the doctors were not reporting it or didn't always
Mm,
report it. And so there was a difficulty in their medical community in controlling, who is making those decisions and how it's kept track of. And that, yeah, there could be, an economic or more a black market kind of influence in, we have hospitals where poor practices are found here in the States fairly often, and someplace that could earn a lot of extra money by, arbitrarily deciding those things and what sort of, perhaps maybe not going too far in depth in how big of a problem it is, because I wouldn't want to like take away from your thesis, but maybe to bring up a report like that and then provide evidence or suggestions on how it could be better controlled and managed to prevent that sort of thing.
yeah, I really, really like that. I'll try to include that into my essay. That might be a little hard. It's kind of a little bit of a stretch, but then again, what I read in the beginning with my thesis slash book, that's just a rough draft. So awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
okay, guys, anything else for Trinity? Great topic, Trinity. It makes for such a good argument paper. It really does. And thank you guys. You gave her I think, some really outstanding information. I hope that was super helpful. Does anybody have any last comments that they'd like to give to Trinity before we move on to someone else? And Trinity,
I
thank
think that
you for started.
as a topic, it's really heavy and hard to deal with, and you have a lot of polarized opinions. So it's definitely a good one to pick as far as making a statement and taking on a pretty significant issue in today's society.
Thank you.
Definitely. Okay. All right, Trinity, that was awesome. Thanks so much for getting us started off to such a great start, and thank all of you. Who would like to go next? I can voluntold. I just was gonna, anybody want to say they'll do it?
I can go next.
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks.
So I completely changed my topic again. But I finally picked something that I think was going to help me with this argument essay. So my thesis is in the United States, there should be paid parental leave because it is financially attainable, beneficial to everyone involved, and allows the US to compete in the global market against other countries. So as I was doing some research on this, I did find out, the US does have FMLA, which is Family and Medical Leave Act, but it does not offer the paid leave during or after a pregnancy. And the US recently did just pass a paid leave, but only for federal employees. And that is only for 6 weeks, which is a really short amount of time for someone who's just had baby. And out of 193 countries in the United Nations, only a small handful do not have national paid leave, which really surprised me because as one of the biggest nations in the world, I would have imagined that we would be up there, but we are actually not when it comes to parental leave. So to compare, I had some statistics. According to the OECD, there's in the sorry, got lost here on my, okay. So the average is 18 weeks to 22 weeks across Europe. So in 14 of those 41 countries, it's fully paid. Although the calculations vary by country. So some countries actually pay 100% of the earnings, which kind of blew my mind because their economies are so small compared to ours.
And Teresa, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify really quickly. So your topic would be that the United States needs to increase their maternity leave.
So the United States, there should be paid yeah, right.
Okay.
My argument is that we should have it. We're kind of lacking when it comes to our status compared to other countries. We're behind when it comes to this. So it's not a far-fetched idea. It's not something that's impossible because I've seen so many other countries do it. And there is, a lot of controversy when it comes to this as well, because who's going to pay it? Where's the money going to come from? So I'm just scrolling through my mess of notes that I've made.
And guys, if you want to jump into for the pros or cons for Teresa, would that be okay, Teresa, if they start jumping in? Would that be a good time?
Yeah, I know it might not be something that many people think about because many people are not parents themselves. But to aid my argument, I think we as parents, we have to focus on our little ones because ultimately they're the next generation. They're the next ones right after us that are going to be leading whatever economy that we create. So if we want the US to succeed and to compete in the global market, I feel like we should invest in our next generation that is coming, our children, and that in itself, just saying being a parent is pretty hard. Adjusting to just having a whole other little human being and being a different person who's responsible for somebody else is pretty hard in itself when it comes to mental health. So I think it's something important to enact where parents don't have to worry about financial strains and they can just enjoy the moment of being a parent.
Yeah, I think that paid parental leave is actually another really good topic since I think it's been in the news a lot recently. At least I've seen it a lot. I think because we've here in the U.S. are enacting a new enhanced paid parental leave policy that's much more comprehensive and I think a lot better for Americans. And I think that's fairly soon, either this year or next year that it went into effect. But I've definitely seen a lot of people talking about it. I think that I'm definitely for paid parental leave. I think that there's some really good reasons, like you said, the stability it provides for children, but then also the stability that it provides for families. For the economic security of the family, making sure that they don't have to worry about where the next paycheck's going to come from, just because they're preparing to bring a child into this world or something like that, and therefore they're not they're still going to be more willing to spend money and take risks and that sort of thing, because they know they'll still have income coming in. But I also think that almost all of the people against it always bring up the damage that it could do to the economy, by keeping people out of the workforce for many months, taking care of their children. But I think there's a lot of really good studies out there that show that the opposite is true. And if you can, especially from countries in Europe that have way better parental leave policies than we do, and I think including some of those could be a really good way to debunk most, if not all, of the points that the people that are against your thesis would bring up.
Yeah, I would agree with Joshua. I think I'm more for it than against it, so I don't really know much of like the other side. I mean, because even when you do have a newborn, you have, a mom needs that bonding time. If she's breastfeeding, the follow-up appointments that she's gonna have to go to. And if the insurance requires copays, well, where's the mom gonna get, the money for those copays, or if any other complications come along? So, like I said, I don't know. I'm all for it, and it should be extended as well.
And to add on to that, there have been studies done that show that with a paid maternity leave, due to the parent getting that extra bonding time with their child, they then have more loyalty to that company they're working for, and that brings even greater profits.
Yeah, coming from the pro standpoint, I know that postpartum depression has kind of, we've kind of seen more of it recently. And so I think that's also another good reason to extend and just have paid maternity leave, just for the mental health of mom and the whole family. I think it's really important.
I'm totally for your topic too, and I'm trying to think. Can anybody think of any, just to play devil's advocate? I honestly can't think of any like cons because I'm so for it. Can anybody think of anything that would be?
I mean, I guess the only thing that I can think of is if they need to hire another person, or if, another coworker is stepping in to fill that position during maternity leave, like why are they going to be paying both that person that they bring on and, the mom that's on maternity leave? Kind of.
And I think since, again, it's been in the news a lot recently, there's some great opinion pieces out there that might be interesting sources to try to find some of those dissenting opinions. Like one that I've read recently was about essentially saying that, we are already in such a labor shortage that it seems ridiculous to then take more labor out of our economy. And so a lot of people that don't like it or were against including it in our economic relief package were saying that, you're only further going to destroy small businesses. If you only have, say you own a flower shop and you only have 2 employees, and one of them's wife has a child, then you now have to pay that employee as a small business owner for so many months while having 50% of your workforce, taken away. And so I don't think those are good reasons. I think that under a proper economy, the government should be able to provide the financial support to make that sort of thing possible. But I think there's definitely some good pieces that you could search for to find points like that.
I also have one. Sorry, I didn't know if Teresa wanted to speak or not. But I wrote it down. Obviously I'm for it, but playing devil's advocate, non-parents may also become upset about new moms getting paid maternity leave and them not receiving paid time off just because, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I just thought it would be a good con.
It really is, Trinity. And I remember one time, this was years ago, but I was in my early 20s, and I remember I had a boss tell me that they did not like to hire women because women get pregnant and take maternity leave and mess up the business. And I did not appreciate that comment, I will be honest. But, from I guess from an employer's standpoint, you can kind of see like, well, is somebody gonna, and I have known people that have gotten jobs, and I'm completely playing devil's advocate, but and I think Trinity you made me think of this, would just be that I've known some people that actually got on and knew that or even knew they were pregnant when they got hired on so that they could get the insurance, and then took advantage of the insurance and then quit. I have known cases like that, so that might be, just to give you some counter argument, because I think your topic might be a little harder with counter. Although I don't know, you guys have all brought up great points. Joshua did, and Trinity did, and everybody really did bring up good ones. So that's just one thought that just came to mind. So, anybody else?
Thanks for the feedback to everyone.
Great topic, Teresa. That's a really good topic. I love it. It's going to make for a great paper. It really is. It's a great argument topic. Outstanding. So, and thank you guys for your input for Teresa. Hopefully that helped a little bit, Teresa, to kind of give you some thoughts. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, so my topic is the death penalty, and my thesis is the death penalty should be abolished because it's an inhumane practice. The wrong person could be irreversibly punished, and it isn't even a deterrent to murder. So some of the pros of keeping it that I've read are like for the revenge, like an eye for an eye in the Bible. Some also say that I've read there are a lot of studies that the cost of having it is more expensive to hold the trial, legal costs, and all the appeals if you're trying to get them to die. I also think that it's inhumane, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and also the chance of killing the wrong person, like an innocent person, is there as well. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a hard topic. That's one. It's really difficult to try to play devil's advocate with the topic. That's as heavy as that. Um, I think that I'm definitely against the death penalty. I don't think it's ever appropriate. But if I had to choose like a reason that might make some sense as far as keeping it, I think that a lot of people justify it by saying that just the concept that a death penalty exists can be a deterrent. If people, the rationale there, I guess, is that if that a possible punishment for the actions that you're going to take is the end of your life, then you may somehow be, less likely to take it. But I have difficulty trying to think that that has merit.
Yeah, that's a good point there. I'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
I can try out a bit of devil's advocate. One thing is, you see this a lot where people mention that the death penalty is kind of required, especially in the United States, because it's a means of stabilizing the penal system. And that's mostly because of how screwed our country is. Like, the United States does not have the same like prisoner rehabilitation programs that other countries have. Like Finland, for example, trains murderers to become science students and get degrees and get a life. But the United States does not really have anything to help the prisoners.
Thank you.
I have one. I like playing devil's advocate too, but I am 100% for we should get rid of the death penalty. Anywho, what if for victims and victims' family, this appeases to them, as in they don't think some murderer killing their entire family, them staying in prison for the rest of their life is enough. Like for people who are like, they honestly deserve death. For someone who committed mass genocide, I'm pretty sure a ton of individuals would rather them be killed rather than them be locked up for the rest of their lives. So I don't know. Maybe you wanted to mention that. I don't.
Right, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree with you, and there's a lot about that, so I'll definitely have to mention that in the paper.
To add on a bit to what Trinity said, often that's not justice, that's just revenge. And I have known people who have lost people to homicide, and they have decided that I don't want them dead. That's just revenge. I want them to rot in a cell for the rest of their life. That's the justice they want.
Yeah.
I think that, so I'm against the death penalty. And another thing is that, like, the family of victims usually don't think about the family of, like, let's say the murderer. And like by basically killing them and sentencing them to death, they don't realize that even though that person is a murderer, their family might still care for them and want the best for them. So that kind of just puts more pain onto another family, and the cycle just keeps going.
Yeah.
It's maybe not as bad as revenge, but there is a cost to keep people in prison for long periods of time, especially psychopaths or people that have done homicidal stuff, whether they need to be on meds or just keeping them in prison in general. There's a major cost to keep them. So that could be a counter argument.
Yeah, so I'm against the death penalty, and I just think an interesting, I guess, argument against it is just looking at it where people of color are disproportionately accused of a crime, put in prison, and on death row. About how racism plays into the whole prison system. I'm not sure if it mentions the death penalty, but it's a very interesting documentary, and I thought that would be
Yeah, that documentary is actually on Netflix. Well,
On
if you
Netflix.
wanted to watch it to help you out,
What is it
'cause
called again?
The 13th. Yeah.
it's very informational. It's actually one of my favorite documentaries. I
Fantastic.
ended up watching it a couple months ago just as a refresh, and it's really, really sad. I probably cried a couple times during it, but yeah, it's definitely very informational. You can get some very good facts and statistics from it. So yeah, good resource.
Great, thank you guys.
There's also there was a story of a dude that was, I don't know if he's mentally disabled or his IQ was just extremely low. He got put onto death row for something that he didn't do, and it's not like he could fight it back because he had no idea what was going on. It was like talking to a 10-year-old. But yeah, he got put onto death row for something he didn't do.
Okay, you guys have given some really good, very good pros for it. Does anybody, I think there was maybe one con given. Can anybody think of another con just to play devil's advocate to help with counter argument? And you may have plenty, Will, but can anybody think of anything?
Well, maybe just like the serial killers that are, out there, and they've killed multiple times over years and years and years, and they finally got caught. Maybe they should be on death row for, or maybe psychologists looking at them and seeing, are these people actually stable enough, or do they need to be put somewhere and locked away, because they are so unstable that they can't be in society, that they're not fit enough to be in society without still killing and doing all that stuff. whether the death penalty comes in play with that or not.
Thank you.
That's a great one, Amanda.
I guess I have one. Amanda, you gave me the idea. One that's really rampant in our society right now is like school shootings. Are these people, or public shootings, are these people mentally stable to be held accountable for their actions? Should they be on death row? I don't know.
Great point, Jisa. Okay, excellent, guys. Wonderful. Will, hopefully that was helpful to you, and great topic. You guys all have great topics, you really do. And great feedback for Will. So I was going to say, no pun intended, who's the next victim? No. That's appropriate.
My topic is not quite as interesting, I think, as the ones that have been brought up so far. We've had such great topics, but I'd be happy to share mine. So my topic is actually about taxes, which I know it's thrilling, so try not to get too excited. But essentially, I had a thesis, but I keep finding more interesting points and opinions that I want to include in my essay, and so my thesis keeps changing. So instead, I'll just kind of give an idea of what my topic is, since my thesis isn't quite polished yet. But essentially, I'm looking at how the wealth disparity here in America has hit the highest level that it has ever in our country, along with the pandemic and everything. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but so many that I think that it's not a good topic for just one essay, since I think each different set of reasons could be its own set of essays. Specifically, what I'm looking at is taxes and how our tax system has contributed to widening, economic disparity between classes, and how it's impacted lower income families, as well as furthered racial divides and demographic divides. And essentially, my thesis, it boils down to, is that we don't have a fair tax system in the United States, and that this is largely attributed to huge changes that were made to our tax system over the last 40 years that brought us away from the progressive tax system that we initially had, which is an economic term, to now a very non-progressive tax system, which has been really harming the lower class Americans. And essentially, the main points I'm looking at right now are comparisons between, our tax system and foreign tax systems, how we have one that favors, wealthy a lot more, and corporations a lot more than pretty much any other country around the world at the moment, and how that's changed from the original design and intent of our tax system. Also, how lobbying and political interests have impacted those changes. And then specifically the impacts that the tax system has had on, racial motivations and demographic inequality. Since right now, with the federal taxes, we have minimum deductions and stuff that are supposed to make it fair. But when you include state taxes on top, you end up seeing that families with lower income, while they pay less in total than a family with a higher income, the percentage of their total income that makes up is quite a bit larger. For example, a family that's below the poverty line may pay 10 to 20% of their total income when taxes, while a wealthier family may only pay 7% after deductions and such like that. And it's so extreme that we actually see like a kind of like an hourglass where like you have or like I guess an inverse hourglass where the wealthy families are paying less and less the wealthier they get, to the point that you get to billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos who are paying nothing on their income, which is pretty despicable in my mind when you look at the situation that a lot of communities have. On top of that, these taxes, while they are harming and further pushing down low-income Americans and keeping them in poor economic situations, it's also, there's a disparity in how the income from that tax is divided. You can look at cities like Detroit, for example, where even though these low-income families have to pay a larger percentage of their total income, most of the tax that they pay to the state and city goes to help institutions outside of their neighborhoods. It doesn't go to help build school in their neighborhood. It helps to go build a school in a predominantly white neighborhood that's wealthier. It doesn't go to, fix the roads or the water systems in Flint. It goes to build public work projects in the inner market districts of Detroit and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of great studies, I think, and a lot of great papers that have been released or leaked recently showing just how bad it's gotten. But that's generally my focus is trying to expose, those facts and see how we could maybe have a route back to something that's more fair.
Feel free to jump in, guys. So you're just saying, Joshua, just to make sure that, just to clarify that, just that our tax system needs revamped.
Yeah, it's broken.
And you can have some very specific key points with that. So I think it would work really well. So does anybody have pros or cons for that?
I think this is a great topic you have going on right now. I recently watched a documentary who actually was talking about that ratio and how far it is when it comes to your everyday worker and billionaires or corporations, and how differently we are individually taxed while they are taxed. We do live in a capitalistic economy here, so I feel like most people which are rich, they make their profits from capital, and they should be taxed more because they make their profit from capital. But that's not how it currently works, so I'm hoping that we can shed some light on that and get that changed for the coming years.
I completely agree. Thank you.
I also agree with Joshua that the tax system definitely needs to be reformed, and a big part of it is that top 0.001% or whatever of people with the most wealth in the country. They're always yelling out on social media and whatnot, higher taxes for the rich is going to affect you too, and it's not true. It affects at most 700 people in the entire country, and that's the most wealthy individuals.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, we've seen a lot of pushes for a fairer tax system in recent years, centered around they'll be called socialist movements by the right, but I think people like Bernie did a lot to bring attention to a lot of these issues. I think naturally, since we've seen such a massive increase in the wealth divide, that attention will be brought to these issues anyways, but a lot better conversations have been happening. And like you said, the taxes on the rich that were proposed in some of the more recent economic relief packages are, like you said, there's only 700 or so people that they'd affect, and yet they'd increase our tax income by 10-15% for the country. So there's definitely some immediate changes that could be made in that manner. But I'm also going to try to focus a good bit on upper middle class and middle class America, because even though the divide in the ridiculousness of how people like Elon Musk cannot. I'm in class. All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Even though there's a lot of ridiculousness with wealthy Americans like that, there's also a big divide, especially racially, between just middle class households. You know, the everyday people that you might think are not, you know, as impacted or as important when it comes to taxes are still paying, you know, way less than the proportional amount that a low income family would. So I'm not saying that we should tax, you know, middle class Americans more, but that definitely there should be more done to lighten the burden on, you know, lower income housing and lower income families.
Okay, does anybody have any cons for Joshua? I think we heard some pros. Does anybody have any reason why we shouldn't do that, that you can think of to play that devil's advocate?
I got one. To play both pro and con. A large part of why people don't want higher taxes on the rich, like the general public, is because in America there's this weird notion that, oh, you're gonna make it, you're gonna become wealthy, you're gonna be a business owner one day. And that's why a lot of people go, oh, well, once I become rich, this is going to affect me, so I don't want to vote for it now.
I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot of like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality that people have in America. And I think that a lot of politicians that are against tax increases will try to portray, you know, these changes in a way that intimidates or scares, you know, working class Americans as far as like, oh, it's going to lower your wage and it's going to make you less likely to succeed. But I think a lot of that is you know, gaslighting, as well as the fact that, like, I keep hammering on this point of how it affects low income Americans. But you know, if you're paying, you know, 3 or 4 times as much in proportion of your income to, you know, someone that's only getting $50,000 or $60,000 more a year than you, then that makes you even less likely to succeed, to be able to break out of that, you know, low income situation that you're in. You know, even if you save up or are, you know, working 2 or 3 jobs, if you're paying 30% of that income on all of those jobs, it makes it really difficult to save anything and really to survive.
Okay, excellent topic, Joshua. Great feedback for Joshua as well, guys. And who would like to go next? And if we don't finish tonight, we will finish next week, so don't worry, we will get through everybody.
I can go. My topic is genetic engineering, and my thesis statement is genetic engineering should continue to be utilized because of the potential to cure genetic diseases, the advantage that it provides for the agricultural industry, and the possibilities that it holds for specializing organisms for certain environments. So yeah, one of the main, I guess, newer technologies of gene editing is called CRISPR-Cas9. And it basically takes advantage of the this enzyme in bacteria that works as they're kind of in their immune system, basically. And it allows them to I guess, cut the DNA at certain points of viruses that, you know, I guess, enter the bacterial cell and therefore disable it. And that is pretty much being used to edit DNA sequences, to cut out like harmful mutations that cause diseases like cystic fibrosis and Tay-Sachs. And it's also being used in the agricultural industry to modify crops so that they'll have resistance to insects. And yes, so yeah, if you have any questions, viewpoints, love to hear it.
So gene editing is so cool, and it's such an awesome topic. My cousin actually works in a genetic lab with CRISPR and Cas9. I believe with he works on crops, so not anything crazy. And I know that most all like animal and human trials with CRISPR are still illegal, which is unfortunate. But I guess a point to play devil advocate, when you're talking about editing, the DNA of something, what guarantee is there that that edit won't cause something disastrous and won't mutate it in a way that could be really harmful?
So you're not really looking at if you're taking like humans, for example, not that it's come to that yet, but they're pretty much looking at DNA sequences that they know like causes something, and it's pretty much like a single mutation, one gene. So they're not going into like multiple genes, because just the human genome is so complex. You couldn't design a human, but they're just kind of starting very small, and yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so I guess I should rephrase that then. Say in terms of crops and plant genome editing, with CRISPR, it's not complete. And so what methods do we have to prevent, for example, genes to accidentally not change reproductive cells, which may make unseen events that wouldn't manifest until years in the future after this crop has been planted and distributed to farms across the country?
Yeah, I hopefully am answering your question. So they basically have, they map out like the genome of crops, and then they send in this guide RNA that like finds the, I guess, corresponding, to put it like simply, DNA section that relates to what they're trying to change. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
mostly, I think there's a lot of people that, for example, there's a group that protests outside of his lab pretty regularly that talk about the science involved. And I think if you check online, there's a lot of people that worry about the accidents that can happen while using CRISPR and the fallout they could have in a worst case scenario, and definitely including points against those groups, because I think those groups are a large portion of the people that are very vocal against the use of genetic engineering.
Yeah, doing some of my research, I've definitely encountered some articles where they're kind of discussing the use of it as for modifying viruses as bioweapons. So yeah, I've definitely seen those, and I'm looking at those as well.
So I have a question. What exactly is CRISPR and Cas9? I have no idea.
Cas9 is it's an enzyme. So it's found in bacteria, and so they're able to take that and use it with different other organisms. So, and then CRISPR stands, it's kind of a long name. It's, let me see, one second, let me find my note for it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. And yeah, it would, I'm not sure, getting into it to, kind of fully explain the name. I don't know if I want to go that far into it. But yeah, it kind of just refers to the guide RNA strand that they used for
Okay.
kind of like looking for the DNA sequence that they're trying to modify. So
Okay.
yeah.
Scientific name for a scientific reason
Yeah.
for engineering different things.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And Holly,
I have an analogy, if you're willing to let me share it,
Oh
that
yeah, go for
really helped me understand it. Is you could think of Cas9 as kind of like a little, DNA is like a little railroad track, right? It spins
Mhm.
in a helix as it goes down with all these rungs that tell your body what to do.
Right.
Cas9 is kind of like a locomotive that rides down those rails, and it looks for a specific set of rails that it's been instructed to look for. And once it finds those, it snips them out and replaces them with a new one that it has stored. And whatever rails you told it to get and whichever ones you gave it to store determine, all sorts of things about the creature that DNA is going to make eventually. So it's kind of like a little Thomas the Tank Engine that can find exactly the right place on the RNA and replace it with whatever scientists want them to. Although it does make mistakes. It does definitely make mistakes with mutations. Then that's, I think, one of the big problems that people have with it.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Kind of going off of what Joshua said, genetic engineering uses like vital vectors to carry functional genes into the human body. So if we wanted to replace functional genes and place them into the genome, functional genes may replace the other important genes other than the mutated ones, which may cause, let's say, other forms of diseases or other human conditions. I feel like humans should definitely keep studying and practicing before they just, hop right into it. Are you going to be covering how they're going to be like studying this before they hop right into because they've already started doing it on human test subjects and whatnot, very mildly, but I don't know, just like with the drastic changes, if that were to happen, I don't know, how would they handle those kind of consequences?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've done it on human. I know they've maybe done it on rats, but I'm not sure. But so yeah, the scientists, they have to make those ethical considerations. And I haven't really encountered any researcher, scientist that is saying that. If we were to use it on humans, they would only be pretty much using it on people who already have a mutated gene that is causing this, life-threatening disease. So I think just kind of not perfect, just kind of getting that as close as to what it needs to be. And just having those criteria and those boundaries is important.
No, yeah, that makes sense. In my micro biology class and chem classes, all we would study were the different DNA strands, RNA, the different genomes and whatnot. It was always so cool getting a patient and almost hypothetically taking out the diseased whatever part of the strand, and because once you take it out, it just connects and it's essentially like it was never there. So I'm really excited to read your paper because I love science so much. So yeah.
Thank you.
Me too. I'm super excited for it as well.
And Holly, I have to ask, this might be an ignorant question because I really don't understand this whole, I don't totally get it. I'm trying to follow. But is this the same type of process that they use for GMOs?
Yeah. So yes, in crops, yes, it's the same process.
I do understand that a bit more, and then
yeah,
trying to. My oldest son would be like, "Oh, Mom, don't talk about this about this topic," because he's in med school. And he'd be like, "Don't even talk about it," and I shouldn't. I was thinking, is this the same thing?
Yes, it is.
The only devil's advocate that I can think of for you, because it seems like the bio thing and then the mistakes is there a moral component to it that could, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand it enough to even say that, but I'm just wondering sometimes if there is like a moral component.
Yeah, that's what the scientific community just has kind of, that's what I've like, they always, they have a lot of considerations to make. And I mean, really, again, just not using it like freely. And then, yeah, not using it freely and just, I lost my train of thought, but yes, I've definitely read, that's what pretty much all the papers, they're pretty much always include something about it just because it's such a big part of the debate. So yes.
Fascinating topic. Boy, these are going to be so great. I'm excited. And what time do we have? We've got 7:08. Is there anybody that would want to go, but you're not going to have a super long time to go? So, or would you rather wait to be able to have your topic be debated a bit longer, starting next class?
I have something I'd like to add to Holly's.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you.
Whenever I hear CRISPR-Cas9, I can't stop myself from thinking about this one thing. Have you seen Rampage starring The Rock? The movie? We're not gonna have skyscraper-sized monkeys running around, are we?
No, just, I mean, they can't ever, the genomes of, humans and other animals, they're so complex, you can't really manipulate it like that much. Like, I mean, I know I've read a lot of things about it, like a lot of the con side kind of says, is it like possible to like design a human? And no, just because again, the genome is so complex, you can't take it that far. You can kind of do it in like only looking at one part of it. So
I definitely think it would probably benefit your paper if you looked into a report that came out earlier this year, actually, where in China they confirmed the first 3 cases of genetically engineered children. Specifically, the Ministry of Science in China arrested a scientist and charged him for essentially crimes against humanity because they confirmed that he had produced the world's first 3 gene-edited babies, in where they removed the baby's genetic predisposition for colorblindness. So they removed colorblindness from these 3 children, essentially taking embryos that would have been colorblind and, I don't know exactly how they did it, but made it so that genetic disease was no longer something that was possible for them. And since we now have confirmations since this last year that there have been successful uses of CRISPR on human subjects, I would think that maybe even a point, because I know we've been railing on you with all these counterpoints, but a point for regulation would be if there is scientists that are out there doing this already on human test subjects, and we have no idea what sort of effects that might have, maybe it's important for us to start regulating heavily and researching heavily into what this technology can do so that we're prepared for, whatever might come in the future.
yeah, I really like that point. Thank you. I think I came across this study as well. I thought I saw that the embryos weren't viable. Do you know if they were?
I think there was so much about it that was covered up by the CCP in regards to not wanting information to leak about it, that there hasn't even really been confirmation that it really happened. It's just been a lot of, communication. And so we don't really know if it did or didn't, or how viable or successful it was. But just the attempts are I think, scary in their own right.
Okay, Holly, I hope that was super helpful to you. complex topics. I'm excited to read it. I'm going to get to learn about it because I don't know. I don't have a clue about it, so I'm excited to read it. And just something I just want to kind of, I know I've mentioned this to you guys, but it's kind of a good time to kind of just remind you that you will have a visual presentation that that you'll post on the discussion board. I don't think we'll have time to go through and have everybody present just because our class time is so short, which is kind of disappointing. I would have liked to have done that. I really enjoy doing that even on Zoom. But you will have a visual presentation, like a PowerPoint for your argument paper. So just kind of tuck that away, that you will have that. And I may open that up. I may give instructions for that this coming up week. Just to, it's early on, but I just don't want to overwhelm you either. Like, Ms. Brady, we're just like getting into this paper and this is overwhelming enough. So I don't want to overwhelm any of you, but it might also be kind of nice for you to know way ahead that, you know, this is coming up, and essentially all it's going to be is a, it's just literally going to be a PowerPoint of your outline. And that's essentially all it is. And I do have examples that I can show you guys that will really help you to kind of see what it looks like. And then we will post that onto the discussion board, and you're welcome to you'll be welcome to look at everybody's, or you can go into the ones that, you know, the topics that you were most interested in and view those and give feedback on that for the discussion piece of that. So, but just to kind of remind you that that will be like our final, in addition to our final essay, that will also be our final project, if you will. There's no tests or anything that you'll have to take, and we're probably pretty close to being done with quizzes. We may have one more, and that would be it, because now from here on out it's going to be all about, you know, giving you time to get this argument paper done, because it takes time. So but I'm excited. You guys have great topics, and whoever did not go tonight, we'll just start you off at class next week. We'll get you started and rolling, and as always, I'll open up on Sunday the agenda for the week. But again, it's going to really, the class is going to kind of take a bit of a shift. We'll still do some discussion, but the reading and all of that's going to kind of diminish because you need time to get these papers done. And I'd rather that you're using that time. We've done a lot of reading already. We've done a lot of the chapters. And so now the focus is going to be primarily on allowing you to have time to get these papers done and meet the various deadlines, like the outline deadline. You've got your annotated bibliography due this Sunday, and hopefully that has been a helpful assignment to you, that, you know, has sort of forced you into gathering a bunch of sources. If you haven't done it, don't worry. It really doesn't take that long. You just have to get 10, it's a works cited page with an annotation for each source. So it doesn't take too long, but now that sounds like you guys are pretty solid with your topics. So hopefully having it due this Sunday was a good timing as far as helping that assignment to be really useful to you. So you've got this great, you know, like library, if you will, of all these sources for your paper. So any questions on that assignment that's due on Sunday? No, and the examples are there too for you. So you really just look at those, and that tells you exactly how you have to do it. And then we will be also looking at argument. We'll go through and look at some argument essay examples to really fine tune those, but I like to get the debates first. So any questions on anything? I sure enjoyed tonight. You guys are all brilliant. These topics are fantastic. So excellent job tonight. Thanks for participating for each other. And I think it's time. This class goes really fast, short class. So, okay guys, so if you have any questions, please let me know. The cause and effects are totally graded. They took me a little bit longer than I wanted them to, always seems to. So I'm still a little behind on some of the other grading, but we'll get that done as soon as possible. So, but those were my priority. So they were great, a real pleasure. Okay, and if Teresa,
Thank you.
Here, thank you guys so much. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job tonight, as always.
Have a good week.
You guys,
Thank you. Have a good night.
you guys too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great week. Great job. And Teresa, are you still on?